Your father's 1991 pickup has 280,000 miles on it. Your 2020 crossover needed a new transmission at 74,000. The mechanic told you that's just how cars are now. He's not wrong, but he didn't tell you why. And the why is something the manufacturer knew before they built it. That bill sitting on your kitchen table right now. The one you're still arguing with yourself about. It's not bad luck. It's not wear and tear. It is the outcome of a decision made in a boardroom before your car was even built. There is a number engineers work backwards from. It is called mean time between failures. And the goal is not to make it as high as possible. The goal is to hit a target, not the longest a component could last. The longest the manufacturer wants it to last. And that target, across almost every major brand, is calibrated to expire 18 months after your warranty ends. Not a coincidence, a calculation. Here is how obvious it becomes when you just look at the numbers. Vehicles built after 2005 degrade fastest between years 3 and 7. Not before year 3 when they're basically new. Not after year 7 when you'd expect it anyway. Right in that window. Right when your bumper-to-bumper just expired. Right when the powertrain coverage is about to run out. The timing is not random. The timing is the product. And the thing that makes this hard to accept, the thing that made me sit with this for a week before making this video, is that this is not a secret inside the industry. Engineers know. Purchasing managers know. The suppliers who build the parts know. Your father's truck doesn't have this problem. The 1987 was built to a completely different standard. I want to show you when that standard changed. And more importantly, I want to show you the specific man whose decision started all of it. Before 1990, building a car that fell apart was an engineering embarrassment. Not a business strategy. Not an accepted outcome. An embarrassment. The people who designed these cars had their names attached to them. Their reputations lived or died with the product. And reputation in engineering is built on one thing. Does it last? Ford's original Mustang team had an internal benchmark nobody told them to follow. 200,000 miles. Not a marketing number. Not a warranty promise. An engineering flaw the team set for themselves. Anything below that, they considered their own failure. Their own failure. Not the customer's problem. Theirs. The philosophy across the industry was simple. Overbuild. Overspecify every single tolerance. Use more material than the minimum calculation requires. Because the minimum calculation is how you build something that barely survives, and barely was not something any engineer was proud to put their name on. Corrosion protection, the process that keeps your frame from rotting from the inside out, was treated as non-negotiable. You ran the steel through as many electrocoating passes as the frame needed, not as few as the budget allowed. The budget worked around the engineering requirement, not the other way around. In 1975, the average American car lasted 9.8 years before needing a major repair. By 2022, that number was 6.4 years. Now think about what changed between 1975 and 2022. Computers now design every single tolerance. Simulation software can predict failure points before a single prototype is built. Materials science has produced alloys that a 1970s engineer would consider science fiction. Better tools, better materials, more data than any previous generation of automotive engineers. And the cars last shorter. That inversion, better technology, worse durability, is not an accident. It is the signature of a system that was deliberately reoriented, and I can tell you the exact year it happened, and the exact man who did it. His name was José Ignacio López de Arriotua. Most people outside the automotive industry have never heard of him. Inside it, his name still makes engineers uncomfortable. In 1992, General Motors was bleeding money. Losses were running into the billions. The board needed someone who could stop it fast. Lopez was brought in as VP of worldwide purchasing with a single mandate: cut costs, dramatically, immediately. He did exactly that. He walked into GM's supplier relationships and rewrote them from scratch. He went to every supplier the company used and delivered the same message. You will reduce your price by 20%. Not negotiate toward 20%. Start at 20%. Or GM finds someone else. Suppliers were not given a process improvement budget to help them hit that number. They were given a deadline. Now here is the part that matters for your repair bill. You cannot build the exact same component for 20% less. Not with the same materials. not to the same tolerances, not with the same expected service life. What you can do, what the suppliers did, is build something that looks identical, passes the same day one quality tests, costs 20% less, and begins failing earlier. Not immediately, not in the first year. After the warranty, this is the moment supplier-mandated component lifespan became an engineering reality. When you outsource a part to a supplier, you hand them a specification document. What the part must do, under what conditions, and for how long. Before Lopez, that specification was written around maximum durability. The supplier's job was to hit that ceiling and exceed it if possible. After Lopez, the specification became a negotiation, not about what the component could achieve, about what kept the warranty claim rate within a range the finance department pre-approved. Lopez left GM in 1993 under criminal investigation for allegedly taking confidential product documents to Volkswagen when he defected. He was never convicted, but the cost-first purchasing philosophy he built at GM did not leave when he did. It spread. Ford adopted versions of it. Chrysler restructured supplier contracts around the same logic. By 1998, every major American automaker had moved to cost-first supplier specifications, and the useful service life target, not maximum, useful, became the industry standard. Internal memos from the 2003 GM supplier dispute litigation entered into the public record, showed engineers were explicitly told to design to a useful service life figure. Useful service life, not maximum service life, not what the engineering team could achieve if given the right brief, the life that is useful to the manufacturer's warranty model. If this is landing the way you always suspected something was wrong but couldn't name it, subscribe. I did a full breakdown on how supplier contracts distribute blame when your part fails just outside warranty. It's already up. But right now, here is the number that made me stop and genuinely sit with this. In 2021, the US House Committee on Oversight convened hearings on automotive defect disclosure practices. During those hearings, internal engineering documents from two major automakers entered the public congressional record. Here is what those documents showed. Engineers had conducted thermal cycling fatigue analysis on electronic throttle bodies, the component that tells your engine how much air it needs. It controls how your car responds when you press the accelerator. It is not a minor part. The analysis showed a statistically significant failure rate emerging at the 7-year mark across multiple vehicle platforms. The powertrain warranty on those vehicles was 5 years, not 7. The warranty cliff was set 2 years before the known failure point. The phrase the engineers used in those documents was acceptable degradation curve. Let that sit for a second. Not, here is a failure mode we need to engineer out of the product. Not, here is a problem the customer should not face. Acceptable degradation curve. They identified the failure. They characterized it precisely. They decided the timing made it acceptable. Acceptable for the manufacturer, not for the person holding the repair bill. This is not a practice unique to those two companies. Variance analysis, the statistical modeling manufacturers use to predict component failure rates across an entire fleet, is standard across the whole industry. And the benchmark that variance analysis is calibrated against is not the maximum lifespan the component is capable of reaching. It is the warranty period. The warranty period is the finish line. Everything is engineered around crossing that line, not surpassing it. Your car was built to survive your warranty, not your ownership. That 1987 truck was built by engineers who thought the finish line was your lifetime, not a 5-year legal document. The 2021 hearings generated significant press coverage. 3 class action suits were filed in 2022, citing the throttle body documents as primary evidence. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opened a preliminary investigation. Here is what changed. Average powertrain warranty coverage extended by 6 months across major manufacturers. 6 months. Here is what didn't change. The repair cost escalation curve, the rate at which your annual maintenance bill grows per year of ownership, continued rising. In 2023, it reached a 14-year high. The investigation identified the mechanism. The response adjusted the optics. The underlying calibration stayed exactly where it was. One engineer who testified, under congressional subpoena, meaning he did not choose to be there, said something that does not appear in the hearing summary, but is in the full transcript record. He said the service life target was never determined by what the engineering team could achieve. It was determined by what the finance team needed the engineering team to deliver, not what is possible, what the model requires. Read that again. That single sentence describes the entire system: the throttle body documents, the reliability index, the repair cost curve, not pointing at isolated failures inside individual companies, all describing the same thing: a system calibrated to a number. And that number is not how long your car could last. This is actually what led me into the Boeing supplier documentation next. Same logic, different industry. The structural parallel is exact, and the consequences were measurably worse. That video is already up, but right now, what this means for every car you will ever buy. Your father's truck is not nostalgia. It is not luck. It is not that they made them better back then in some vague, unspecific way. It is evidence. Evidence that when the engineering target is maximum durability, you get maximum durability. And when the engineering target is the warranty cliff, you get a car that starts showing you what it was actually built for around year 4. The cars you are buying today are not limited by what engineers are capable of. They are limited by what the financial model permits engineers to build. And the financial model has one fixed benchmark that everything else orbits around: the date your manufacturer's legal obligation to you ends, not the safest possible design, not the most durable available component, the warranty expiration date, and 18 months past it. There is a part of this story I deliberately left out: the used car market. What warranty period calibration does to buyers who cannot afford new, who are buying the years 4 through 8 vehicles that the system was specifically designed to start failing in. That is its own video. It is already up. And between the two, that one is the one that matters most. The cars will keep getting smarter. The screens will keep getting bigger. The software updates will keep arriving. And so will the repair bill. Right on schedule. 18 months after your warranty runs out. Right on time. Just like they planned.